Welcome to the Dolomites, welcome to the Hero Südtirol Dolomites 2017 from Selva Val Gardena. 4,017 competitors taking part in 2 races over some of the most stunning and beautiful countryside in the world. Just look at that. Breathing in the Dolomites. It's going to be the scene for a very spectacular few hours of racing today. And on the menu for us, 2 races, the elite men's race over 86 brutal kilometers and the elite women's race over 60 kilometers. Part of the UCI mountain bike marathon series. And this is going to be a real test of endurance, perseverance, skill and everything else. One enormous lap around the Dolomites and the men climbing a total of 4,500 meters in elevation, and the women also 3,200 meters in elevation. A very severe test indeed. Traversing some of the most beautiful mountains in the world. Starting, of course, in Selva Gardena, and they go up the Dante Sepris, Colvara, the Campo Longo Pass, Araba, the Pordoi Pass, the Sella, back to Selva Gardena, and the men, well, they face similar climbs and more. As you can see, the beautiful landscape here. Not that the riders will be having too much opportunity to take note of their surroundings. I think one of the important things, critical thing as well, they'll be racing at altitude, hardly a flat bit of road at all. A remarkable amount of elevation, but the men start in Selva Gardena. Some of the crowds massing at the start. They then go up the Dantapris, which climbs to well over 2,000, well, just around 2,300 meters. And there is the start area, Selva Val Gardena, itself at 1,563 meters above sea level. It's a beautiful day. Early morning start for this event. Remember, the men will be taking around 4.5 hours to complete their ride. And more of the sporting competitors, they could be taking 6 or 7 hours. So very, very long day in the saddle. But really, it will be a day to remember. A spectacular day's racing, but it's not just about the races. As I said at the top, 4,017 competitors in this race. And an early start. This is the elite women. It started at 7:10 this morning, just in the shade of the buildings there. I'll be thankful for this cool start. Caping up, of course, at 1,500 meters. Going to be a bit of a chilly start. It was around 10 or 11 degrees when they started off, making sure they were keeping warm on the start line. There we go, 9 degrees, 65% humidity, but the temperature will soon start to rise. And a long day in the saddle there. Fully fueled and ready for the day. And alongside me today for this rather interesting, undulating, brutal ride is Simon Burney, mountain bike expert extraordinaire. So this race, Simon, I mean, it is particularly special. I think without a shadow of a doubt, it's one of the, well, the hardest mountain bike marathon race in the world.
It is, Matt, yeah. I think you described it undulating. I think a slight understatement, that one. It's brutal. It's for sure it's the hardest mountain bike race in Europe, I think, as a one-day race. As you mentioned earlier, 4,500 meters of climbing in only 86 kilometers for the men. 60 kilometers for the women, still with 3,200 meters. It's brutal. There isn't a flat meter on the whole course. It's the climbers' course. It's the climbers' race for the elite that are starting at the beginning of the day. So for sure, it's one of the tough ones, but it's in an absolutely staggeringly beautiful part of the world. And you know, I think once it spreads out a little bit, you'll be surprised that they actually do take in their surroundings quite often. One of the joys of mountain bike racing, it's held in some of the most stunning locations in the world, ski resorts and ski areas and areas like the Dolomites. So it's certainly take advantage of what you're riding through.
Definitely. Well, there we go. 60 k's in length, 3,200 meters of vertical elevation gain, and there is some of the gearing that these women are going to be using, and the men, of course. The men waiting patiently on the start line too. They'll be going off after the women, but pensive times. It's interesting that many road riders do come across to ride these marathon types of events. We'll talk in a little bit more detail about the type of event, the physiology, the skill set that you need. And you certainly do need a bit of everything, and you also need the right equipment as well. There are some roads that the riders will be going over. In fact, in the women's event, there's well, off-road is 55.5%, single trail 35.7%, and on-road 8.8%. And for the men, off-road 69.9%, single trail 16.8%, and on the tarmac for a mere 13.3% of their journey. As I say, the riders, I mean, what sort of preparation, what sort of meals would the riders be having before an event like this? I mean, it starts off brutally, straight up a climb. There's no real chance to get yourself bedded in. So when were these athletes have sort of last fueled up before this sort of event?
It's all about the day before, I think, Matt, for something like this. 7 o'clock in the morning for a race start. You don't want to be getting up at 4 a.m. to get some pasta down you. So mainly the night before, and I think probably 5:30 this morning they'll have a light breakfast.
And I hope
Katrina Schwing, twice winner of this event.
Can push me at the hills. I trained very hard the last weeks, and I hope I feel very strong. Now it's okay, but I'm not so young. The other girls are younger, and they start very fast. And then I must look that I can go with them. That's my biggest problem at the start.
I think the morning, the day is good, the weather is good, and I feel good. I think it's a good day for me e for my team.
Noi cerchiamo di dare il massimo. All'arrivo trarremo le conclusioni e speriamo siano positive.
It's a big question tag because I have a problem with my knee. I'm not sure how I will perform today. I will do my best, but we'll see.
I'm excited before the race. I did it 2 years ago here at the World Championships, and I like the course really much. I hope I can perform well today. The weather is fine. Great event. Yeah, let's see what happens.
Well, interesting to hear from a few of the riders there ahead of the race. A few of them playing the cards close to their chest. Katrin Schwing, one of the elder riders here, very experienced indeed. Again, it's not unsurprising to hear one of the older riders saying that it's the start that's quite tough, and as some of the older riders, almost like diesels, they get to, as the race progresses and they get deeper and deeper in, that's when they really come to the fore. But they're going to need to get a good start there. The ticker tape goes. Pink, of course, it's not the Giro, but maybe a little bit of a nod to the Giro d'Italia there as they ride through. And as I said, taking the time on an event like this. I mean, how do these riders pace the early sections? I mean, they want to obviously get a good position because moving up on the narrow sections is difficult, but
sure.
Will riders look to other riders to sort of pace them, or will they look to sort of ride their own basic race?
Yeah, it's basically you're on your own, really. If you've got teammates, it's a bonus. I think the men's race has probably got more team riders. The women's race is more made up of individuals. You know, it is about your own individual effort, measuring your ability over the course and over the period of 4 or 5 hours, really. It's a brutal start to this race. It's very hard. It's a big, long climb to start, and that'll spread the riders out. There'll be significant gaps, and as Katrin Schwing was saying earlier, you know, for her, she can't start fast. For some of the riders, it's very easy to go a little bit too fast, a bit too enthusiastic, get carried away on the first climb and pay for it later in the day. So for Schwing, it's probably not a bad thing to have that steadier start and to ride into the race as the temperature warms up and, like you say, the diesel gets going a little bit as well.
Well, definitely, that was a pretty brutal start. I think they had 100 metres of flat, and they swung left onto the road, up the climb. And already the field starting to really spread out. But as you say, you don't want to push yourself into the red too early. 60 kilometres off-road is a long, long way by anybody's standards. And here's a gravel section. And just look at the speed. We're talking before we came on air, weren't about the average speeds on this sort of event. Because the climbs are so brutally steep and long, the average speed is relatively modest, isn't it? I mean,
it's slow. Yeah. We don't need to skirt around it. It's slow speeds. I mean, you get a feel for the gradient on some of these pictures. I think from the helicopter shots you can't quite tell how steep it is, but you know, you're looking 25-30% a lot of the time, which is you know, you need to really be climbing seated. You can't climb out of the saddle. It's similar to a road pass climb. So you know, very, very low gearing, and just getting into that rhythm and just Yeah, grinding it out to the top, really.
Well, that's Christina Kollmann of Germany, of Team Texbas Simplon. Just cruising up this climb at the moment. And you can just see, and if you understand a little bit about bikes, you can just see the massive gear ratios, very small chainring at the front, an enormous chainring at the back, and a very very large rear mech with a very long extended hanger to allow for the ratios. But this is a relatively, I mean, the development of gearing in mountain biking has moved on a pace, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, hasn't it? So the ratios they have on board, they only actually need one chainring at the front because the ratios they have at the back are so wide.
That's right, yeah. Depending on which component brand you use, you've either got 11 or 12 sprockets on the back wheel. But now, you know, nowadays you can go up to a 50-tooth sprocket on the back wheel, which, you know, a few years ago was the chainring on the front.
It's almost as big as the wheel. Yeah, it is reversed, isn't it?
It has reversed, yeah. With the smallest sprocket with 10 teeth, you've got a huge range of gearing. And again, you've reduced the need for 2 more chain rings, a front derailleur, a left-hand shifter. So the weight of the bike comes down.
Well, as we see the riders just going up the first climb of the day, the Gardena Dantestapris, and that would take them up to nearly the highest point of the day. We're going to take our first commercial break. Keep it here on your home of cycling. Welcome back to the Hero Südtirol Dolomites 2017. This is a round of the UCI MTB Marathon Series. The women's race is underway. They're going up the first climb of the day, and it is absolutely brutal, yet beautiful at the same time. And currently, the situation on the road, Maria Cristina is in the lead for Italy. Elida Gaddoni is in second position. She's about 13 seconds behind. And then Carmen Buchaka of Austria leads a string of Austrian riders. And there you see the riders spread all over this mountain. We're estimating roughly the time it's going to take these women to complete this 60-kilometer course. Remember, with 3,200 meters of elevation, it's going to be between 4 hours and 4 hours 30 minutes. So a very long day in the saddle. So important that you measure your effort. Starting and finishing in Selva Gardena in the South Tyrol area, in the Bolzano province in Italy. They actually go through 2 regions, the Veneto region and the Trentino region, as they pass through Araba and Canazai. And of course, this is these 2 races, these 2 events are just part of the celebration of mountain biking held over the weekend. So this is the start of the elite men's. The Hero Südtirol Dolomites 2017 for men, part of the UCI MTB Marathon Series. 7:20 the men started. A brutal route for the men. 4,500 meters of vertical elevation gain over 86 kilometers, passing through some of the most beautiful scenery in this region. In fact, in Europe, and this is without doubt the toughest mountain bike marathon race in Europe, possibly the world, but hardly a flat bit of road at all. I think the first 100 meters is flat, and then they kick up the first climb of the day, the Dantasepis, and that takes them up to a heady elevation of around 2,298 meters. They then drop down into Corvara, then go up the Campo Longo Pass, Araba, the Pordoi Pass, Canazai, the Campitello, the Doron Pass, and then back to Selvat Gardena. This is last year's winner, Hector Leonardo Paz Leon of Colombia.
Ci vuole fare bene, speriamo riuscirlo e sono contento di essere qua nuovamente. Auguri a tutti.
Oh, the feeling is good. The weather is good, but the race is really hard, and for sure in the hard climbs I'm a little bit more difficult than Leonardo and these real pure climbers, but I do my best, and maybe because of distance I'm pretty good in the last hour. I can make some places good, and we will see. It's going to be difficult.
Yeah, it's maybe the hardest race I ever done. It's so steep uphills and it's just up and down, so you have no time to recover, and it's really hard. And but I'm looking forward to it. But now I'm really a bit scared. But yeah, I think when the gun is go, then I'm good in the race.
Sì, dopo un secondo, un quarto e un quinto posto qua alla Io e parto per qualcosa di meglio. Insomma, sono in formissima e gli avversari sono agguerriti sicuramente e la gara mi si addice, quindi sto benissimo, ne vedremo della bella sicuramente.
La corsa sarà dura perché la conosco, l'ha fatto nel 2015 con il campionato del mondo.
Just saying that the course is very hard, brutally hard. Climbs 4,500 meters, but good preparation for the World Championships. So there we go, the riders with the power meters on board to help measure their effort. And the men are underway. Blue ticker tape for the men. And the same start as the women's event. Straight out of the blocks. Just that tiny little bit of flat road on the tarmac before kicking up the first big climb of the day. And this really is a big effort for these men. As I say, lots of these riders, you know, a little bit nervous, apprehensive about the start, because on a course like this, there's just no hiding place at all. And if you get your pacing strategy wrong, it's game over.
It's all over, absolutely. Yeah, the last hour is just trying to get to the finish if it all goes badly wrong early on. Interesting to hear Huber before saying he was actually scared.
I think I share his apprehension, to be honest with you, Simon.
He's actually racing today. He's actually going to travel into Switzerland this evening and racing another marathon tomorrow.
Well, there we go.
The World Championships next week in Germany, and he's doing a bit of an overload. 2 races in the weekend with a bit of a taper to prepare for that.
There we go. Well, that's the length of the men's race. 86 Ks, 4,500 meters of elevation gain. On road, 13.3%. Off road, 69.9%, unsurprisingly, and single trail, 16.8%. So, Simon, what is the difference between off road and single trail? Obviously, I understand what tarmac is, but what's the single trail and off road? What's the difference there?
Single trail, basically, you can't get past anybody. So if you're stuck behind somebody, there's no way to get past. It's almost like the sheep tracks and the goat tracks in the mountains. So you've got a very small area that your wheels will fit on. You can get between the trees or the bushes or the rocks, but yeah, if you want to overtake somebody, you're pretty much waiting until the next section where it opens out. We saw a little bit earlier on the women's race, the kind of the wider, almost like the fire trails, the gravel roads that the farmers use for getting around on. That's off-road. Obviously, it's whatever 3-4 meters wide, and it's easier to pass. And it's just cut up with little sections of single track that link the roads, link the passes, and link those gravel trails that we saw earlier.
So I guess if riders then are looking for, obviously depending on how they're feeling physically, if they're looking at particular points to move up, has to be on the wider sections. Otherwise, they're going to be caught behind somebody, and it's almost impossible to pass.
It is, and especially on the single track descents, climbs as well to a point. But the single track descents, if you're a good descender and you maybe with somebody that you feel is a little bit weaker, you just need to get in front of them at the start of the single track sections. Single track climbs, they don't tend to be as many. The single track tends to be more on the downhill sections. The climbing it's never going to be an issue that you can't get past somebody on a climb. You're travelling a lot slower. The descents on this, in the big scheme of things, they're not super technical. There's certainly races with a lot more technical descending. Having said that, it's not the difference between winning and losing this race, the descent. Everything on this race is based around the climbs. It's all about being a climber, having a bike that's set up for climbing. You might sacrifice a little bit of comfort and tyre size and tyre pressures and things like that. You'll set those things for climbing, not for descending necessarily on this.
Because that's where all the gains are going to be made.
All the gains are going to be made, exactly.
It's a balance, but it's also looking about where you can exploit and take time.
Yeah. And certain other races, if the descents are very technical, you'll be certainly setting up your bike to make sure that you're not going to flat on a descent, that you're going to be still in contention on a descent, or if you're a very, very good technical rider, that's where you can make your gains. Again, on a race like this, it's all about going up.
This is the first climb of the day. These are pictures recorded earlier on of the men taking this first climb, and this is the Gardena d'Anticipi's pass. Climbs up to 2,298 meters. The climb itself, 805 meters of elevation gain. Now, I'm interested, this race is going to take around 4.5 hours for the men. So, you see many riders do have beat-ons, they have bottles on board the bikes. I've seen a few other riders with this camelback system on. So, in terms of feeding and feed stations, how does it work for these riders? Because, as we get later into the day, it's going to get very, very warm, hardly any breeze on these climbs, they're going to get very hot. So, fluid intake so important. So, how do the riders cope, and what's in place for the riders to support them on that side of things?
On a race of this length, I think there's 5 or 6 feed stations that also incorporate a tech area where the teams can send their team staff with spare wheels and tools and whatever else they might need. The race themselves put on a neutral feed, so riders can take obviously the 3,000 that are following on behind these elite riders can take food and drinks and stop and refuel. The elite riders tend to just take bottles and gels or food from their team staff. Very rare that they'll use the neutral feeds unless they miss. What happens is that the team staff are leapfrogging between the areas, and sometimes to kind of get around the mountains, it's quite a long drive. Occasionally they'll miss a zone, in which case the rider will stop at one of the neutrals. But like you say, it's crucial. You can't do 4.5 hours on fresh air. Nope. You need to be fueling, and you need to be fueling early on as well in this. And the problem is that it's almost remembering when to fuel and how to fuel. On the descent, you're holding on for grim death. You're not going to take a bottle on a descent. Climbing, you're breathing, very hard, and you're at kind of threshold heart rates, and it's not easy to find a time to.
No, definitely. One of the other riders saying there's hardly any time for recovery, and you look at the parcours, 4,500 meters up, but also 4,500 meters down. But you're stressed on the way up. But then, because of the technical nature of the descents, you cannot afford to relax at all. So although you might be physically, not expending quite as much energy, you're on the edge, you're tense, you're kind of on your limit perpetually in a race like this. And it is very easy to forget to drink. And given the systems that our bodies have, once you start to get thirsty, it's generally too late, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So, as you say, they have to kind of make sure that they're reminding themselves to feed.
Yeah.
These are pictures again from earlier in the day. And of course, there was many other riders taking the start. 4,017 competitors signed on for this event. Of course, we've got the elite riders going earlier on. And riders can pick and choose whether to ride the 60-kilometer loop or the 86-kilometer loop. So it's a clockwise loop around the mountains. So many of these UCI MTB Marathon Series events are on circuits of 2 or 3 laps, but this is one of the events that's one singular lap, but it's open to other competitors to do. Very much like sportifs on the road as well. But it's great, isn't it? Anybody, you've got the elite competitors fighting it out for World Cup points, but also anybody who's up for a bit of a challenge and is fit can do exactly the same trails as the elite riders, which is wonderful.
Yeah, and I think we used the London Marathon analogy before we came on air. You know, it's the elite are at the front racing for, you know, prestige and prizes and points, and further down the field it's a bucket list event that people just want to go and do something and tick off and have a personal challenge, and that's what makes these events so perfect. I think it's like you say, 4,000 people with every possible level of ability and yeah, kind of goal to get out of the day, really.
Yeah, but I think for some people it's going to be 7 or 8 hours in the saddle, isn't it? I mean,
and more, I think. Yeah,
it's
I think
the
cut-offs. They have cut-offs at various points around the course if you're outside of a time limit, and I think the last one of those, it pretty much gives you a 12-hour finishing time. Yeah, I was just looking through the regulations, or not so much the regulations, but the rules, and I think you basically have to sign a waiver to say that you are physically prepared for this, because this is whatever level of fitness you're at, this is, you know, a brutal day out. As we just looked to last year's winner in that bright kit, real distinctive kit. She said she was going to have a little bit of a steady start, but she's flying up the road at the moment, and the men catching some of the women on this first climb as well, but that's hardly surprising. But they will be merging. As you say, we've got 4x4 motos giving us these wonderful pictures as they creep up this climb. And you get a real sense of the gradient here. And we're going to take ourselves a little bit of a breather. Unfortunately, the riders can't. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
FISU, today's stars, tomorrow's leaders.
Welcome back as the riders just head to the top of the first climb of the day. Many of the men catching. It's the women who started about 10 minutes earlier. This is the view. They're nearly at the top of the first climb, climbing to just over 2,230 meters. And before they start the descent, looks like part of the descent is on the road. It'll be a welcome respite. When you switch from gravel to tarmac, it's a really lovely feeling, isn't it? You just get that sense of kind of speed, yeah. And that obviously it's that kind of shock on your arms and the rest of your body. It will be a slight bit of welcome respite for these riders. Yeah, this is still on the gravel roads, and you've still got the water bars going across it, so you've still got to be quite attentive. You can just see there that rider just crossing over little bunny hops just to get over the
the water bars, and the gravel does collect on the inside of those corners as well. So you're still going to be fairly conscientious as you know, where you are, what you're doing.
Well, the leaderboard at the moment, Jurip Ragnoli of Italy, and 1 second in front of old Tony Paulison. And further down the order, we have Marcus Kaufmann, Tati, Arnaud Rapillard. So spread all over the mountain. That's unsurprising. As riders plough their own kind of furrow, it's very easy to get tempted by the pace of other riders. But if you do that for too long and get your pacing strategy wrong, you put yourself into the red and you get yourself into all sorts of difficulty. Because as was pointed out earlier on, there's no hiding place at all. So a very individual sort of effort, this sort of event, isn't it? Although you can need to keep an eye on other riders and riders that you can use as markers, but essentially it's about getting your pacing right, isn't it?
It is, absolutely, yeah. You are racing other people, and that's important, especially at the very front of the race. I think once you've come out of the top 10, maybe you're not thinking about necessarily racing for the win or the podium or the points, then you're just riding your own individual race. And I don't think you can't really use other people as a barometer of where you are, what you're doing. You really need to be focusing on yourself. At the front of the race, obviously we saw there, you know, Paulison together with a couple of other riders at the front, and it's a slightly different story. He'll be trying to, he was the one in the pre-race interview talking about he'll be better in the last hour. You know, he's not as young as he used to be when he was a World Cup cross-country rider. But again, this last hour, you still want to be in contention for the first couple of hours for sure. So,
well, indeed, you need to, as I said, need to get your pacing right. Some riders will go better at the end, but this is what the riders are facing today. You can just see the sinuous route that this course takes.
I think it's a good. That's a good visual of what they're actually climbing up here as well. This 3D imagery is really useful to understand the height gains and the descents that they're going to take over these 4 hours.
Indeed, I know the Passo Campolongo on the road, not ridden off-road. Also had a nice cup of coffee in Rabat. No time for the riders to do that, although there is a mechanical station there and a feed zone along up the valley. Again, the men face about 8 testing peaks today. This is the Passo Pordoi. The Passo Pordoi, the Giro d'Italia, went up the Passo Pordoi just a few weeks back. There's the ski station at the top. But again, there's the road just to the right-hand side. So many different mountain bike routes. It's beautiful to come here and ride on the road. Equally as beautiful to go off-road and do a little bit of exploring. But you'll find off-road, this gradient's far steeper. Still hairpins cut in to the mountainside. But that's why you need this very, very low gearing. This is the Passo Sella. Again, the beautiful Dolomites. Absolutely majestic, and as I say, it really is somewhere spectacular to ride. And when you watch events like this, it really does kind of inspire you. Just kind of makes you want to get out on your bike, doesn't it? But that is what it's all about. It's about making people excited about sport, about getting out in the fresh air, but also about some of these regions. And there is the aerial shot. So one clockwise loop around the mountains, slightly shorter for the women's 60Ks and 85 for the men. And again, these are pictures still from earlier today. Now, different sort of road surface here. Now, this is where you really start to have to pick your line. You see the riders being forced to sort of switch around. And again, single, it's like a Cannondale there with a single fork on.
Yeah.
It's never been interesting. I mean, what's the? I mean, the kind of the strength of the wheel must be absolutely incredible to have a single fork.
It is, and everybody that I've ever spoken to that's used the Cannondale Lefty, which is what it's called, has always said it's the best fork they've ever used, and would always go back to it, you know. Roy Paulison there, who's on it, he rode for the Cannondale team for a long time when he was a World Cup, World Championship and Olympic racer earlier in the 2000s, but he moved to marathon. He's actually a Belgian living in northern Italy.
Well, this is the climb of the Corvara. It's the second climb of the day. Climbs to just over 1,500 meters, and as you can see, these little runoffs, these little gullies. I guess that's for all the snow melt to drain off the mountain.
Yeah, we saw some snow in the background and a couple of the long shots, and it's not been gone that long here. I'm sure when you were there at the Giro, you could still see some snowy peaks.
Yeah, there was. I mean, they haven't apparently had the best season for snow this year, so the snow line was a little bit higher than usual. But you can just see right on the top of the mountains, as you can just see the tyres moving over the gravel. That's a sound. I mean, I must admit, I'm a big fan of the sound of tyres on tarmac, but also that sound of those tyres on the gravel. I mean, in terms of technique, riding on steep gradients with gravel, you need to make sure you distribute your weight over the bike to get the right sort of traction. And again, that's a real skill in itself.
Yeah, you know, we talked a little bit earlier. The seated climbing is, all these guys are sitting. You're climbing for, well, in this race, 15-20 minutes at a time. So little sections out of the saddle just to stretch your back and stretch your legs. But it's generally, once it gets very steep, seated is the way to go, especially on a loose surface like this. You need some traction on the back wheel. You're actually more out of the saddle on the descents than the climbs, which is slightly strange if you're coming from a road background.
I suppose, will the riders in this sort of event be using dropper seat posts for the descent to get the weight over the back wheel, or will they just, I mean, what's the score?
Not as much on an event like this. That's more for the kind of the really steep rock garden, gap jump, technical descents that you probably see more in a shorter cross-country race nowadays. Dropper posts, the descending in this is quite similar to the climbing. There's quite a lot of this gravel road descending. The single track descending, it's not so technical that you'd need the advantage that a dropper post would give you. The disadvantage of a dropper post on an event like this is it adds vital grams to the bike, and everybody at the elite end of this race is trying to save as much weight as they can. I'm sure there'll be a few dropper posts in the 4017 riders back down the road, but for these guys at the front, every gram counts. So.
Indeed. Well, there we go. This is a look at the men's event. We looked at the women's course earlier on. 86 kilometres, 4,500 metres of height gain. I think I've said that on numerous occasions now, but I think it's worth reminding everybody of how much climbing there is in this event. And as you said, every single gram counts, especially if you're looking at scoring points and looking at winning. When you're looking at carrying just an extra 300 or 400 grams over that sort of distance, it does come down to a considerable amount of time that you can lose. So riders looking at every single weight gain that they can, looking at strategically making sure they're carrying enough fluids as well, that they can make sure they're hydrated, but not too much that they're carrying it around needlessly. So a real strategy is at play. And as we touched on earlier on, the bike's very, very light indeed. They've got a single chainring on the front. That's a little bit of weight saved there. But an absolutely beautiful route. And you've been involved in the planning of the routes when you've worked with the UCI in the past as well. So what type of things do you take into consideration when looking at a route like this?
The big marathons, we mainly rely on local experts and local knowledge of the organisers to come up with their plans. We just tend to be more involved with where the feed zones are, where the start-finish area is, but we leave them the actual planning of the route, the detail of it to the local organiser on site. And these guys do an amazing job. They've got road closures for the passers. They've got great police cooperation. And again, like you said earlier, that we're going across various different kind of areas of the Dolomites that all need their own permissions and licenses to close off areas to have the race pass through. So it is quite it's a full-time job for quite a lot of people in an office in Corvara that put this race on every year. But yeah, we tend to leave it to them. The shorter races, the cross-country races, we have a little bit more involvement, but the marathons, it's all about the local guy knowing which farm he can use and where the tracks go and how it all links up.
That's it. It's the advantage of local knowledge. Leave it to locals to plan. You can rubber stamp it, make sure the technical nature, the technical side of things are sorted out.
Exactly.
But there we go. This is into the last 15 kilometres of the course, and the finish in sight. There's a few smaller peaks to go over. The last big climb is the Passo Sella. They then drop down and kick up again, a small sharp climb before the plunge back down into Selva Val Gardena. And there is the route of the men's elite event. Well, this is the beautiful start area in the South Tyrol, Selva Val Gardena. This is now live, so the riders out on course. The sun a lot higher now. It's a very chilly start, just under 10 degrees for both the men's and women's. It started at 7:10 in the morning for the women's event, and their race, in terms of time, should take about 4 hours and 30 minutes, give or take, and roughly the same time for the men. And here we go. This is the race at the moment. Let's try and identify who these riders are. Just dropping down this descent. And it's got probably about an hour and 20 of racing to go. Nope, I do apologise. This is recorded images from earlier on. This is this is the descent off the first climb of the day, the Gardena, dropping down to the climb up in Corvara. Some of these aerial shots, they really illustrate the kind of technical nature of these descents. And a couple of riders there going a bit off-road. Is that allowed?
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah. You've got no real course marking on these, so it's the fastest way down. So if you feel you can chop a hairpin and go across the grass and avoid any big holes, then yeah, you're quite welcome to. Generally, you will try and stick to the path. It tends to be the path's there for a very good reason.
Of course, yeah, it's the best, generally the best line, isn't it?
Yeah.
As you say. I mean, what sort of tyre pressure are these elite competitors going to be running? Because we talked about, the equipment's absolutely vital, feeding strategy, pacing strategy. But of course, given they're going to be going mostly uphill, but they've got some very technical descents, obviously depending on a rider's weight, what kind of pressure are we looking at on these tyres?
Yeah, sort of 50, 60 pounds. It depends on the size of the tyre as well a little bit. I was talking to Urs Huber's team manager from Team Bulls yesterday. Quite interesting, who said that because it's a climbing race, normally they'd use a 2.3 tyre. They'll put 2.1s on for this just because they're not too concerned about the descent. So you're looking at it here thinking, well, you'd want as much security as you can down there, but say they're all about the climbing. So a slightly smaller tyre, a smaller volume of air, and again, quite a relatively high tyre pressure, just to give you that extra rolling momentum on the harder surfaces. Again, on a day like this, there's no mud to worry about. There's nothing really sliding around, so it's just all about going as fast as you can uphill. And
it's mostly hard surfaces, though it's gravel, moves around a little bit. As I said,
these guys are so used to moving around on descents like this. There will be, drifting and sliding without any problem. And tyre tread again. It's more about a mixed tread that still rolls fairly fast and gives you some grip on the gravel surfaces.
Well, this looks like it's some of the sport competitors, 4,017 of them in total, picking their way up this mountain, spending the whole day doing it. And that looks like it was our last year's Colombian winner.
Yeah, Hector Paez, he's won this race 4 times, and he was the favourite for the World Championships here 2 years ago, and managed the podium, 3rd place. Didn't get the win he was hoping for. He's been rode for the Bianchi team for the last 5 or 6 years, Italian based, and we heard him talking Italian earlier on, so a Colombian relocated, riding for a slightly smaller Italian team now, but still, again, he's had a good start to the season. He did a couple of marathons earlier in the year, end of April, early May, and was getting on the podium, obviously getting ready for next week's World Championships. And I think what we're seeing here is a few of the bigger names that we would normally see at this event have given it a miss this year to prepare for the World Championships in Germany next weekend. Again, because this race is so hard, the recovery from it doesn't match up too well with getting ready for the main weekend of the year.
Well, Ragnoli is leading at the moment. It's a sizable lead. It's over 2.5 minutes. Paulison in 3rd at 2:44, and then 4th place Longo, 7 minutes and 19 seconds behind. And that's over the Passo Pordoi, so they're at the 48.8 kilometre point. Now the Passo Pordoi for the men means that after the Passo Pordoi they plunge down to Canazai, they then pitch back up again to the Passo Duron, drop down, pitch up again, then drop down to the finish in Val Gardena, where they started the day. So some really big time gaps opening up, but that's not really surprising, 48.5 kilometres into the race, but perhaps a surprising leader.
Yeah, I think so, yes. And some big gaps there, like you said. It was quite surprising. And Paez wasn't featured in that.
I didn't see Paez up there, no.
In that first 8 or 10 riders that we saw on that list. So whether he's had problems early on, or he's just not on a good day, or again, whether he's maybe saving himself for bigger things to come next week to try and get that elusive rainbow jersey that he hasn't quite managed to pull off yet.
I mean, just in terms, well, we'd probably talk about, we're coming up to a small commercial break in just a few seconds, and we'll talk about the technical side of things, because obviously riders aren't averse to puncturing, having mechanical issues, And although they have to look after themselves, there are pit stops around the course as well, which we'll discuss in just a few more minutes' time. But as we head into commercial break, just look at that view.
This summer will be something to talk about. Slovenia. Make new memories.
Be one with the game. Players, passion, and victory. Be one with it. Hungo Tire, an official partner of the UEFA Europa League.
If you educate a girl, everything changes.
Fraction is a bad.
You teach a girl, you teach a generation.
Welcome back to the Südtirol Dolomites, the Heroes Südtirol 2017. And the women have around 10 kilometers to go. We have a sole leader at the moment. It's Elena Gadoni. That's Sabina Sommer on our screens at the moment. Plowing a lonely furrow, several riders in front of her. You can just see her way slowly picking away up this mountain. A beautiful day, the sun on their backs now. Now we talked before we came into the commercial break, Simon, about, as we see, a bit of a backup. I think this is a lot of the other riders who, of course, remember there's 4,000 riders spread around this course. And there are going to be bottlenecks at some point, aren't there? Especially as you can see, some riders taking to, going completely agricultural.
Yeah.
Some riders taking to this is the descent of the Passo Pordoi. Actually, you can just see the riders snaking down on the course, the road to the right-hand side. That was what the riders climbed in at the Giro this year. But what an absolutely wonderful sight here. But back to my point earlier on. So riders have to look after themselves, but there are set points on the course where if they need mechanical assistance, they can get a wheel change, etc., etc.
Yeah, you basically need to keep the same frame. But around that, you can change anything. So you can change wheels if you need to replace a chain, if you need to, if your saddle breaks, then you can replace all those things. And there's neutral service in those areas provided by, the bike component manufacturers, the teams for the elite riders. The teams will put staff in there with spares as well. So yeah, again, they'll always carry, most of the riders will carry like a small tool just in case something comes loose on the bike. But major mechanicals, they'll be expecting some help at the 5 or 6 technical areas, and the same areas where you can also take a bottle and find the neutral feed zones as well.
Well, it wasn't only the elite riders and the sport riders. It's your Bambini. Some on little balance bikes as well. These are the heroes of the future. Always wonderful to see. And a real festival of events over the last few days, culminating in the elite race. But great to see the kids out on their own mini circuit, fully heroed up. It looks like they're going up part of that climb, being assisted and walking, but in a few years' time they'll be flying up these mountains. But always absolutely fantastic to see. And it's great to have the elite races as the kind of the pinnacle, the kind of aspirational kind of ultimate aim. But essentially, it's about getting kids involved and getting out riding and first and foremost enjoying riding a bike, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it's such a safe environment for kids. You know, off-road, it's the perfect place for children to start, whether it's cyclocross or mountain bike racing. No cars to worry about, and you know, all kids love playing in the dirt, so it's the perfect place for them. And this. You know, this is a 4-day festival of embracing mountain biking, really, that Gerhard Vancy and his team put on for the Hero Weekend, and it culminates when we're watching the elite races, but there's so much more going on, and they close the area down for a festival of mountain biking, and it's a great event.
It's great, as you say, it gets kids out and about, like you say, in a safe environment, but also I think what it does give them, but a little bit like riding BMX first off, is you're in a safe environment, but it really gets you confident on a bike, and it really makes you helps you with your skill set on a bike as well, and that's that kind of bike craft.
Yeah, and you can take that skill then to any discipline of cycling. I think we all know, you know, people like you know, some of the greats on the road have all started off-road, whether it's Peter Sagan or Jakob Fuglsang or any of these guys have been winning in the last race, you know, in the last week. They've both been winning big races, and they all started as mountain bike riders and cyclocross riders, and they've all medalled at been world champions in both as youngsters. And it's the place to start as a cyclist. You develop skills that you can't learn later on in life, you know.
I found that out when I went very late into mountain biking, as you won't go into that, Simon, but as you well know, I had a bit of a foray into mountain biking. I love riding a mountain bike, but I thought I'd best stick on tarmac.
Stick to what you know.
I should have started earlier on, shouldn't I?
And again, when you did the Cyclocross World Cup in the UK a couple of years ago, you know, that was something that, you know, if you'd have done that 20 years ago, you'd have been, you know,
that might have been all right.
You'd have been happy.
But as you say, I think one of the things about mountain biking and cyclocross, again in particular, is the skill that the riders have, the ability to transmit power at the right kind of time. It's the efficiency on the bike. And when you look to riders like, you know, Peter Sagan and that kind of the skill he has, which he transmits over onto the road, is something quite wonderful to behold.
It is, yeah, it is a great place to start riding a bike.
Well, this is number 22. This is Elena Gadorni. She has a camera bike just behind her. It's live images being beamed across. And they've gone over the Passo Pordoi, and they have one more climb, the Passo Sella Jock, and then they will drop down into the finish. About 3/4 of the way down the descent, there's a little sharp climb that pitches up before they then plummet back down into the finish. But these little GoPro shots, these little shots give an indication, of course, of what the riders face. But look at that, absolutely stunning views. And some people out cheering these riders on, but Gadorni looking like she's got into a pretty good rhythm at the moment.
Yeah, she's looking pretty good. The way that the courses are configured, the men overtake, get in front of the women's race earlier on in the race. The women just miss one loop out that the guys do, that then puts the majority of the men in front of the women's race, which works very well. It gives both races the chance to race uninhibited by the other.
You can just see the images there from the guy behind, sat on a wheel, giving us those live pictures. The S-Works bike there, the Bestworks Specialized bike, almost in her lowest gear, pouring her way up this climb. And because of the low kind of speeds that they're traveling at, it's going to get very, very hot. So as you say, taking those fluids on, even at altitude, you know, so important. But that's another thing we haven't really touched on too much, is the kind of effort that these riders are putting out at altitude. It is completely different, isn't it?
It is, and you mentioned it just then, the slow speed, high torque, high power. It's a very specific physical ability that needs to be very well trained. Again, you're traveling very, very slowly on sometimes, you know, gradients of up to 30%. So it's very hard. And one thing that you're not getting at altitudes like this is the kind of the feeling of sweating a lot. That means it reminds you to drink, so you do get quite dehydrated without really appreciating how much you do need to replace those liquids. So once it's hot, high altitude, it's very dry air.
Well, that was interesting there, as we just saw Elena Gadoni, born in 1980 from Italy, descending this climb. They're obviously sharing the route with walkers. That was a little bit of a sketchy moment there. I think she would have given a gentle call out, perhaps advising those walkers, ramblers, shall we say, just to move out of the way. But some real rocky, gravelly sections here. And as you say, as fatigue starts to set in, even as you know on the road, it's very easy to get, a descent wrong, but less margin for error here, even with the big tyres. So many different obstacles. You've got to be looking up the road to look at your exit points from corners, but also keeping an eye on exactly what's in front, so you can manoeuvre around the rocks in front too. So it's very different discipline descending on this sort of terrain than on the road.
It is, and if you see them, she's standing on the pedals on the descents all the time, not seated. And it's towards the end of a race like this, it's very common to get cramp in kind of hamstrings and calves because you're standing and that position, and it's the worst kind of pain to experience at the end of a race like this. But again, you've only got to hit one of those rocks wrong, and you can put a slice in a sidewall of a tyre, or and it is game over. So you've got to be very, very attentive. And as you say, after 3 hours or so, which the women are close to 4 hours now, Gadoni followed by Coleman at 5 minutes. It's fatigue is setting in, and concentration is the first thing that lapses, really.
Well, she's just on the cellar climb now. As Gadoni, she is in the lead, has a healthy 5-minute advantage, 3 hours and 45 minutes into this race, and the camera bike is with her, and she looks to be picking her way down this descent, not taking too many risks at all, dropping down very, very well, but also a little bit conservatively too, and with a cushion of 5 minutes, and clearly she's the strongest rider in the race. She's got about 40, I estimate around 30 to 40 minutes of racing still to go. She seems to be riding a very sensible kind of descent at the moment, not taking too many risks. 5 minutes and then 7 minutes 32 to the next rider. She could have this in the bag unless she explodes on the final climb. And it's only a short one, because after the top of this, it's a descent all the way down to the finish.
It is, yeah. But again, 5 minutes can go just as easy as losing the air out of the tyre. So
how long would it take? I mean, these riders primarily at the top end, they're all running tubeless tyres. So how long, if she had a puncture now, she'll have a canister in her back pocket, how long will it take to repair, let's say a back tyre?
If it's just a slow leak going through a small hole, and she's got a canister with her that then would plug that hole and put some air back into it, then it's literally just it's a matter of seconds, to get off the bike, get back going again, 30 seconds probably. If it's a bigger hole, if she really does slice the sidewall on a tyre, then really the canister's not going to have an effect at all, and she's either going to have to put a tube in it, which is going to take a few minutes because you've got to take a valve core out and try and get the tubeless tyre back on a rim with a tube in it, or you've got to go to make your way to one of the service areas and get technical assistance to get a wheel change, and both of those things would evaporate a 5-minute lead, straight away.
I mean, just from a technical perspective, as we see Elena Gadoni looking like she's going to head towards victory here. Still a fair distance to go, but looking very good at the moment. You say she went past a technical area, had a puncture.
You can't go backwards on the course.
I didn't think so. So she would have to ride.
Keep going to whatever, the 15 kilometres maybe to the next one.
I mean, they are quite...
they're probably 10 kilometres spaced out, I think, on this course.
So she could arguably ride 10 kilometres on a rib and possibly destroy the world, which is...
But she's been quite tentative on some of this descent. But you can understand why there's no reason for her to take undue risks. She needs to just keep it under control and make her way to the finish.
As you say, a very experienced rider indeed, 37 years of age now, and dropping down the descent of the Passo Sella very, very effectively indeed. And as you can see, a mix of grass, gravel and tracks. And she'll be looking ahead, making sure she takes the kind of racing line, just cuts the apex of that corner. But as you say, she's not taking any risks here, but descending very effectively. And as 5 minutes is a considerable distance, even at these sorts of speeds. And a great shot now of what the rider's face, and there, just down in the distance in the valley, is Val Gardena. And now a little bit of proper off-road here. Looks like this is basically like a walking track, isn't it?
Yeah, there's your single tracks we talked about earlier. I think on this one you probably could overtake if you needed to without too much problem, but on some of the ones where it's a little bit steeper and you've got the small bridges crossing the snow runoff streams there becomes a little bit more tricky to try and get past somebody if you need to. But again, once it widens out like this, if you're with somebody, it's not an issue at all. One thing you do get at the bottom of races, bottom of descents like this, is a lot of hand pump. You know, you're gripping on fairly hard and braking us all the way down certain periods. So, yeah.
This is a great shot down here. Gadoni descending this extremely well, picking up immense speed. Well, this is Elena Gadoni in the lead for Italy, descending the Passo Sella with a 5-minute advantage over the next rider. You just see the cattle just galloping in front of her. She's had all sorts of obstacles today, not just the rough terrain. A couple of walkers were in it at one point. So we really are in amongst it. It feels like we're actually going down a ski run here, Simon. And it's quite possible this could have been a ski run in the past, but
I'm sure it is in the winter. Yeah, I'm sure all these hills have got ski lifts on them, crisscrossing the Dolomites.
She's picking a line very, very well here. And there's another shot. There's some motocross riders as well sharing the course. Perhaps I think they're herding the.
Yeah, that's the marshals.
Yeah,
This,
I mean, this really, as you say, it's closed off, but it's a live environment. There are people walking about there. There's animals out there, so it's
that's what
it's dynamic.
It is absolutely, and it's not a closed off. It's not a closed environment at all. There's no course marking. There's no banners and course tape on the side. You've got to kind of figure out your own route, and you've got to be responsible for your own safety. Really, it's not like a regular cross country, whatever 4 or 5 kilometre lap that's totally taped and marked. It's you've got to be, you're responsible for finding your own way. There's marker arrows, and there's sections where if they do take a turn off a major track, that it'll be marshalled and it'll be signed. But it's still very regular for riders to go off course and to suddenly find themselves in the middle of nowhere and think, well, what happened? Where did I go wrong? And have to turn around and retrace and try to pick the course back up again. So it's a little bit of, not orienteering exactly, but it's a little bit of self-sufficiency. You need to know where you're going.
Well, Gadoni now is dropped off down the mountain. The course marshal has gone with her on the motorbike. There's the aerial shot of Gadoni picking away down this descent. 3 minutes and 51 seconds into this race. Remember, 60 kilometers in length, and by the time she reaches the finisher in Val Gardena, she would have climbed 3,200 meters of vertical elevation gain. A big day in the saddle. She's clearly ridden very, very strongly today, dispatched the rest of the field. The third place rider is currently at just over 7 minutes behind, and the rest of the field spread over many minutes, and riders will be finishing well over an hour behind. But this is a fine ride indeed. There's a couple of rises and falls. It's not, although it's dropping all the way down, there are a couple of sections where the road just picks up again as well. So it's not all a run down to the line. Yeah. And these can catch you a little bit by surprise.
Absolutely, they're hard. Yeah, I think you know yourself, once you're halfway down a descent, to suddenly change gear again and go back up, it takes the legs a little while to get going again. It's 4K to go. The majority, well, the overall impression is downhill, but a couple of little kickers on the way.
Yeah, this is this last little kicker, and once she gets over the top of this is just about 800 meters long, if that, then she'll drop down to the finish, plain sailing all the way. This has been a superb ride. This will be a big victory for this rider. An experienced campaigner, some very good results over the last few years, and of course riding on home soil as well in this beautiful region. She's going to love every single moment of this, and with a gap like that she can savour it. Of course she wants to make sure she gets through this technical section, and again with that 5-minute cushion can afford not to take any chances. There's nobody in front. She's picking her own line through. As you say in road riding, there's always somebody in front of you on a descent, either a motorbike or a lead car, but here she's just got open countryside. A real different feel to this sport as she snakes her way down this descent. So around 3.5 kilometers to go now for Elena Gadoni. It's a real classy bike rider.
Yeah, good. You know, she's only had one big result this year. She was third in one of the UCI Marathon Series races in Cappeliveri in Italy middle of May, I think. So a relatively low-key run into the season. A lot of the marathon races at the back end of the year. The Marathon World Championships at the moment is the end of June, next week in Germany, Singen. But a lot of the big marathons tend to be kind of from this time of year onwards, right up until October. So again, because a lot of the locations they use, the ski areas and the mountains, not really suitable for big races before the snow's gone away. Tend to be late summer. So Gadoni, obviously in some kind of shape. Third place already in a big race, so this will be her first win of the year.
Yeah, and her first win, of course, in this event. She's been second and fourth previously in this event, so an event she knows very well. But to add this to her palmarès will be something very special indeed. Right for the AS Dilettantista team. It won't be long before she crosses the line. Put about 3.5 kilometers to go for our sole leader. And as we mentioned, she has a comfortable, handsome margin, in fact, over the second place rider on the road. But on a course like this, anything can happen. So she needs to make sure she's focused all the way to the line. All it takes is one little lapse in concentration, not getting a corner right, perhaps just taking your eye off the ball a little bit. So concentration and focus vital all the way to the finish line.
Absolutely. Even just 150 meters before the finish line, there's a little technical drop into the finish chute, and we've seen riders crashing there before. So anything can happen right up to the line. But hopefully she'll be enough in hand to take it a little bit easier, keep her concentration.
Well, we'll see the crowd here in Salvaval Gardena will give her a rapturous reception. Be a home winner. So the good crowd assembled here. They'll see the men finishing later on as well, and throughout the rest of the day, probably until nearly nightfall, there'll be the riders. For sure. I think the last place rider will probably take maybe 7, 8, maybe even 9 hours to complete this course. But as you say, it is very much like, I think the best analogy to compare it to other sports is like the London Marathon, isn't it? Where it's you've got the elite entrants that start off to go for the glory. And then it's the individual glory of all the other competitors, and it's just about completing the course, because when you look at it, it is absolutely brutal. I mean, when we talk about the UCI, the mountain bike marathon series, how long has this kind of long form of mountain biking been around as a competitive, as part of the UCI calendar, in fact?
So marathons have been around, yeah, as long as mountain biking, really, but just in different formats. The UCI kind of picked up on it with a Marathon World Championships and originally a Marathon World Cup in the early 2000s. The Marathon World Cup kind of formed into the marathon series to give more rounds.
Elena Gadoni auf den letzten Kilometern ist. Hat sich was getan bei den Herren. Wir steigen ein beim Zwischenzeitpunkt Turn. Also, das ist Kilometer 66 auf der langen Strecke. Als erster oben durchgekommen aus italienischer Sicht hoffentlich Juri Ranioli. Mit 1 Stunde 48 Sekunden, mal kurze Zwischenzeit. Noch ist er der Einzige, der normal durchgefahren ist. Schaut mir ganz genau. Ja, das ist bei Kilometer 68 sogar. Also, er hat da noch, schauen wir mal, 16 Kilometer dürften es ins Ziel.
No anticipation on the line here in Val Gardena, waiting for the header of the women's race to come through. There is one lone leader, Elena Gadoni, the Italian, riding for the AS Dilettantista team. 4th place before, and also a 2nd place in this race. This will be her first victory in the Hero Südtirol Dolomites race. A real wonderful race to add to her palmarès, and it won't be long before she comes dropping down. She's just on the final descent of the Passo Sella, and on the way to the finish, she's climbed the Dante Cepri, she's climbed the Pralonga, the Passo Campolongo, the Passo Pordoi, the Passo Sella, before dropping down into the finish. It's been a big day. There'll be well over 4 hours in the saddle by the time she crosses the line, which should be in the next 5 or 6 minutes. She's just dropping down. She has around 2 kilometers to go now, we understand, and a very healthy lead over the 2nd place rider of around 5 minutes. But she's going to need to stay focused all the way to the line to secure victory. But looking at the time, Simon, a very respectable time. Looking at the times we've seen over the last couple of years, it is actually a very, very competitive time she's posted today.
It is, yeah. Sally Bigham won last year in just 4 hours, 5 minutes, I think. And yeah, she's very, very similar to that, I think it's going to be. But it's perfect racing conditions today. You know, there's not much wind, nice and sunny, nice temperature, good visibility. Certainly this race has been run in, once you get to certain elevations, you know, in low cloud, and you don't really know where you're going, and it's wet and it's slippery, and today is made for races like this.
It certainly is. It's great for the racers, great for the spectators, great for us commentators as well.
Great for television. I think
yeah,
you lose all your helicopter shots once the cloud comes down, but right now she's certainly in the last section of this course.
Oh, here she is. As the clock ticks past 4 hours, she comes into view. Elena Gadoni looks as if she is going to ride to a very famous victory on home soil. Just makes that transition across the paths, back onto this kind of single track section, still dropping all the way to the line, and she's still pedaling furiously, making sure she keeps that margin, because you just never know what might happen next. And this last section is actually pretty technical. 800 meters to go now. And what must she be feeling? This is a big race, the hardest of the marathon series in Europe. And when she looks back over what she's achieved, she's going to savour every single moment of this victory.
I think so, yes. And I don't know if she's going to be racing next week, World Championships. If she is, this will be great motivation for her for a big day next weekend. She can pretty much put her feet up this week. A few little rides to recover from this and to prepare for next week.
Well, through the shade of the trees, at speed, Elena Gadoni enjoying these last few minutes. I think she knows she's got it in the bag now, and this will be where all that pain will ease away to that euphoric feeling of victory. Will she be thinking about the style of victory salute that she wants to put on display for the fans, or just about getting to the line as quick as possible? But as we said, the winning time last year was 4 hours 5 minutes. It looks as if at this rate, probably with about 400 meters to go, I would estimate now, she's going to beat that time. But as Simon mentioned, absolutely ideal racing conditions, not too much mud, no wind, beautiful conditions, and clearly Elena Gadoni in very, very good form indeed. So she should come through the trees in just a few moments time. Almost a slight bit of picture break up there. Helicopter providing us with these great pictures, and again vision through these descents. That most of these rides will be wearing sunglasses. She just heads on to a bit of tarmac for the first time in a long time. Back on, well, still off-road.
Yeah, this is the last section. Just drops back onto the road that we're looking at on the left-hand side of the picture. That she'll see the finish arch very soon.
Yeah, she will indeed, and there it is, just down to the left. She'll get an absolutely rapturous reception here, but still needs to stay focused. Another cruel little incline before the drop down to the line, making the legs burn for the very last time.
I'm not sure about that 800 meters to go, Simon. It feels like a very long 800 meters to me.
Yeah, because she was moving a pace down there, wasn't she?
She was, yeah.
So yeah, maybe some sketchy signage, but she knows the circuit. She looks like she's taking a little bit of time now just to clean herself up, covered in dust of course, and here she is dropping down into the finish. Elena Gadoni of Italy will be the winner of the Heroes Südtirol Dolomites 2017. Just into the last few meters, snaking around. A little bit of a kick there. She crosses herself before the line. Elena Gadoni of the AS Dilettantista takes the win. A wonderful victory, first victory in this event for her. A big win. She is absolutely delighted. It looks like she can't actually believe it. Simon, an emotional moment for her.
Yeah, very much so. Big race, home country. Doesn't get much better than this, really.
It certainly doesn't. Sponsored by Specialized. Again, the fans wanting a piece of the action. Italian flag there. She's just waiting now for the second place rider to cross the line. And the last time check we had over the rider in second position was around 5 minutes. So really authoritative, convincing victory today. Paced that course beautifully. but in a faster time posted than last year's winner. So, as we said earlier on, ideal conditions, but she still had to execute a plan and did it to perfection. A very, very long day out, just over 4 hours.
You can see the size of the finish area there. It's a tiny little area that they've got to finish this race. It's a little square in the middle of Corvara.
Yeah, Corvara, it's a lovely place, absolutely gorgeous. And as we say, it's a showcase for the sport, a showcase for the countryside, a showcase for this particular part of the world. It is absolutely gorgeous. As we see Elena Gadoni cross the line victorious in the Hero Südtirol Dolomites 2017. The minor places are still to be battled for, but meanwhile we're going to take ourselves a short commercial break. Keep it here on Eurosport, your home of cycling. Welcome back. A spectacular finish to the women's race. Elena Gadoni victorious. And there was the setting. Absolutely stunning, picturesque vision. The Dolomites looming over this countryside. And a spectacular course indeed. The men still out on course. They should be rolling into the finish in the next 30 to 40 minutes. But the women, of course, will start to finish too as well. So 4 hours and 3 minutes was the winning time for our winner today. I think second place has crossed the line. Christina Coleman has also crossed the line for a podium position. It's number 17 there. She's going to be guided to the podium very, very shortly. Rides for Team Texpas Simplon. And the winner just being interviewed in the background. I think we're still waiting for the third place rider to cross the line. That just shows how difficult this course is. So the riders will be spread and finishing even in the elite event for probably the next 20 to 30 minutes as well.
Oh, easily, for sure. Yeah, I think we'll be seeing some big gaps here. So I think the women will be spread over the next hour easily. And like you said, the men will start to arrive in the next 15 or 20 minutes, I would guess. I think we've seen a fast women's race. I think the men's race, again, will be similar. Probably faster than, or as fast as the last few years. Maybe missing some of the very big names in mountain bike marathon racing. But even so, the say perfect conditions for racing today. So I think we're seeing under 4 hours 20 maybe.
No, an absolutely gorgeous day. The sun beaming down on the throngs that have gathered here in Selva Val Gardena. The start and finish, of course, for this race. And still waiting for the third place rider to cross the line. And the last time check we had about 10 kilometres, or the top of the final climb of the day, the Passo Cel. I think the gap to the third place rider is around 7 minutes, but that gap could have gone out even further, of course. There's still several uphill sections, even on the descent as well.
Yeah, we're kind of missing the information on the men's race a little bit to know what's happening in the last sort of 15-20 minutes. A lot could have happened.
Indeed.
Interesting to get back and see what the gaps are, see which names are still in that first 5 or 6 riders that could be going for the podium.
I think we saw Yuri Ragnoli was leading for the men at around a minute lead, but that was a fair while ago now, half an hour ago plus. Huber was up there as well as Tony Longo, but this is the moment that Elena Gadoni crossed the line. And as I said, enjoying every single moment of this victory. The very short finishing straight points to the sky and takes the line. A little bit of a shimmy as she crossed the line there.
She was being interviewed while we were on the commercial break, and she was saying that it was a dream come true, and I think she's ridden this race a few times, and I think once you do that and you've been on the podium, I think that win is the only thing that's ever going to be totally satisfying, I think, and for her to do that.
Exactly, as you say, the lead up to that, all preparatory, so a 4th and a 2nd, and now she adds a 1st place to this. And I think this is our leading rider at the moment. This looks like Yuri Ragnoli, the Italian champion.
We need to have a word with them about the colour of their body numbers, because red on black doesn't really pop.
Very, very good point. As you're within your jurisdiction, working for the UCI, maybe we should look at that, because that is actually quite difficult to pick out. It looks like number 145. It was Yuri Ragnoli, actually.
So the Italian champion, marathon champion. So earlier in the day, he had a lead over Roel Paulison from Belgium.
Well, that was the 3rd place finish for the women's. That's Carmen Buchaka from Germany. Just crossed the line. So that is the women's podium sorted out. So Elena Gadoni wins from Christina Coleman, with Carmen Buchaka in 3rd place. But this is our sole leader, the Italian champion Yuri Ragnoli, 29 years of age, sits 19th in the marathon rankings so far, and looking very good at the moment. 4 hours and 3 minutes in the saddle, so we estimate he should be finishing in the next half an hour or so, but looking pretty good at the moment. A few glances over his shoulder. I'm wondering what sort of time gap he's got at the moment.
Yeah, obviously on some of these long climbs you can get quite a good visual behind you to see if anybody's chasing you. Obviously you don't have the road style of pulling cars out of motorbikes to see when it gets a small gap, but yeah, he's looking still in good shape.
You know, the final, it's a slightly different run-in for the men. Of course, the men face 86 kilometres and the women 60 kilometres. So the final climb, or the final section of climbing, they climb out of Kansai over the Passo Duron, drop down and kick up again, and they come in a different approach into Sella Valle Gardena. This is the Alpe de Siusi. So another little glance further down, and a couple of rather eager walkers there, completely oblivious to the mountain bike race unfolding in front of them, doing a bit of a selfie there. But of course, he's looking pretty good, and hopefully we can get some sort of time gap. The rider behind is actually on an e-bike, not a ridiculously talented cameraman. E-bike's very, very popular indeed. That's obviously an e-mountain bike. So I did have a go on an e-bike a few weeks back, and I must admit they're
amazing.
They are absolutely amazing. I think they just level the playing field. Great for this sort of thing. Great to bring us these pictures. But but also if you go out with a partner or a friend who maybe isn't quite as physically fit as you, it just irons things out, doesn't it? So you can share the experience, because riding in this sort of terrain, for some people they just could not do it, could they? They're not. But the advent of the e-bike over the last couple of years, they're getting lighter, battery packs are lighter, they go for longer, they can give you an immense amount of power. I actually think they're a wonderful thing.
It opens terrain like this up to a whole new market of people that might be quite daunted to ride in the Dolomites.
This is our sole leader, Giulio Ragnoli, just in ahead of Paez Leon, 1 minute and 10 seconds in front. Menzi in third place at 11 minutes. So the battle does appear to be between just 2 riders, and quite a tight battle. Hockenwart is in fourth position at 12 minutes 11 seconds, so not too far behind. So third place on the podium, really up for grabs, as is the win. So Ragnoli needs to keep pressing on. That's why we're seeing him furtively glancing over his shoulder, because a minute, if you blow it this deep into the race, could go away very, very quickly. So, oh, there we go. Sorry, 7 minutes and 31 seconds it is the gap. I do apologise there. So Ragnoli actually has a very, very comfortable lead from Paez Leon. I mean, you know, barring accidents now, it looks like the Italian is going to ride to victory today.
It does, and it's an interesting where Paez has come from in the last 30 minutes and where Paulison has vanished here, because Paulison now not in that top 8 that we just saw on screen, and Paez again wasn't in that top group 30 minutes ago when we I think we saw them on the Campolongo. So interesting change of events, but like you say, Ragnoli's looking very, very good right now.
Yeah, well, Hector Paez Leon, the Colombian rider, was last year's champion, and Ragnoli put 7 minutes into last year's winner. That's a very, very comfortable margin. He's just got to stay focused though. But even allowing for a little bit of a minor off or even a mechanical, he should have enough in hand there, enough of a buffer to change a wheel, fix a puncture, and still ride to victory. But looks very, very strong. Looks like he's putting a fair bit of torque through there. You can just sense the amount of force that he's putting through the bike here, can't you?
You can, and he still looks in good shape as well. His body language is good. He's on top of his gear. He just keeps to keep. Yeah, he's having a drink there.
Yeah, keeping those fluid levels as topped up as he can. Not gone for the Camelback, gone for the traditional bead on there. No rear suspension on this bike. So I guess most riders doing this event will just have front suspension, just front forks. There's no point in having rear suspension because it just adds too much weight. There's no real need for it on a course like this, is there?
Not really. I think we saw the specialised bike of the of Godoni was on the full suspension. For the men on a course like this, if they had a choice, again, some sponsors, some teams, they're pretty much set with a bike that they have to use. If they've got an option between a hardtail and a full suspension, I would say this course is a hardtail course, all about climbing and all about the lightest weight you can get on your bike.
Will the riders, I suppose, depending on the brand of the fork, will the riders have an option to lock out the forks for the climbs at any time?
They will, yeah,
obviously they'll need it. They need the dampening, of course, for the descent like this, just to soften things up, smooth things out. But on the climb, you know, unless it's particularly bumpy, you don't want to lose any energy at all, do you? Which you do lose to a degree with the suspension.
A little bit, yeah. Again, when the climbs are so steep, you're not putting that much weight over the front anyway, so there's not much bob on a modern day fork, and again, most of them have got a lockout as well, but even the ones that don't, there's no real bobbing up and down. If you've got a fairly fluid climbing style and you're in a low gear, you're on top of the gear, then no real effort wasted.
Ooh, a bit of a kick out there. Back wheel went away slightly, but very much in control. Looks like he's ascending pretty well. Getting very aerodynamic a few moments ago, getting into an aero tuck we're more used to seeing on the road.
Yeah, little bunny hops over the water bars. Like you say, we did quite a bit of work with teams when I was managing teams about the aerodynamics of going downhill, and you still your general position on a mountain bike is a bit of a wind stop, and you can add. Yeah, you can see he's
got a dropper post on there. You know, he just flicked it back up again. You can just see that, and he goes down again there.
Yeah,
so
right.
He's gone for the drop post option. Clearly helps on the descent. I mean, for people who are just watching this event or mountain biking for the very first time, just explain to us, how a dropper post works and why riders would choose to have one.
Yeah, so it just drops your saddle, the seat post in the frame, or the top part of the seat post in the bottom part of the seat post. Puts your lower centre of gravity, and just you don't have that saddle up your behind when you're trying to go down a very steep technical descent, and then just with a flick of a switch it goes back to exactly the same position it was before and locks out, so that your riding position is identical to pre-dropped. So it's just kind of come along in the last 2 or 3 years as a more popular component on a bike. But again, it's mainly been for the technical sections, but again, obviously he's using it, he finds it a bit more comfortable, and maybe can just descend a little bit more relaxed without having to worry too much. But again, you know, the descending position, the general descending position is standing on the pedals like we're seeing him doing here, you know.
Well, absolutely breathtaking to watch. And meanwhile, a bit further down the course in second position is last year champion Hector Páez-León. Really got into his rhythm well, but with a 7-minute deficit to make up, it's going to be very, very hard for the Colombian to make the first step off the podium. But again, he looks strong, but certainly in the red at the moment. Just by that facial expression means he's hurting. But this is a brutally difficult course. We're going to take our final commercial break. Please stay with us.
This summer will be something to talk about. Slovenia. Make new memories.
If you educate a girl, everything changes.
Fraction is a bad
You teach a girl, you teach a generation.
Welcome back. This is our sole race leader, Giulio Ragnoli, the 29-year-old Italian, way ahead of the second-place rider and the defending champion Hector Páez-León of Colombia. 7 minutes approximately is the buffer on the run into the line now. And just a reminder, last year's winning time by Hector Páez-León was 4 hours and 35 minutes. So based on that estimate, given where they are roughly on the course, we've probably got about 15 to 20 minutes of racing still to go. That is a very, very healthy advantage the Italian has at the moment. He's already won one of the UCI MTB Marathon Series races. That was the 9th event at Tillemont in Italy. The Tillemont Marathon bike race is also 3rd in the Capoliveri Legend Cup in May. So good form this year, the Italian champion. Riding his Scott there, opting for the dropper post, as Simon explained earlier on, but looking very, very strong. But a different run into the line for the men's as opposed to the women. The women dropped off the Passo Sella, and a far more different approach for the men. The Passo Duron kicking up, and the Passo Siesi, and then dropping back down. A couple of little mini cols to crest before the drop down into Val Gardena. But are looking very comfortable at the moment, our sole leader. But just looking at his results, already had a win in the Marathon Mountain Bike World Cup so far this year, and another podium place. So he's clearly in a very rich vein of form at the moment.
He is, yeah. And again, you know, we're going, I keep talking about it, but we're going into World Championships next week, and I think for Payers, you know, he was 4th last year, he was 3rd in 2015 at this event when it was World Championships. He was 3rd in 2013. He's not won that race, and I think it's a big deal for him, and I think he'll be definitely setting his sights on that one.
No, without a shadow of a doubt. But this mountain bike just behind, the e-bike behind, giving us some fantastic pictures of Ragnoli as he descends, actually riding very close to his back wheel. And there's also another bike just behind that. But clearly the riders who are acting as marshals in this event and on onboard cameras, pretty accomplished mountain bikers in their own right by the looks of things.
They are indeed, yeah. I think the one that's on the on this bike is Johannes Palhuber, who's yeah, in his own right, he's been a great mountain biker in the past, World Cup rider, and ridden this event as well.
I think I'm getting going quiet for a few moments. When we go past these, pedestrians / ramblers, I always get a little bit worried because many of them seem absolutely oblivious to what's going on around them. So excuse my pauses for breath. But there we go. Ragnoli leading the way, a very healthy advantage. This is Monty Panna now, coming into the real back end of the race. But still, this absolutely stunning, beautiful countryside in this South Tyrol region, the Bolzano province of Italy. So 2 bikes behind him, the camera bike and another camera bike, in fact.
Yeah, 2 camera bikes there. But again, you can see what an e-bike allows you to do. It's amazing, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly does. As I say, a few moments back, experienced it myself, and yeah, phenomenal amount of extra power it gives you on the climbs. And actually, because of the extra weight on the descent, actually, you feel like you're descending on rails on the road and even off-road as well. So if you ever considered using an e-bike but weren't too sure, hire one out and have a go, because they really are quite something. As is this course, as is this rider. Ragnoli absolutely flying down this descent, getting aerodynamic, using that dropper post occasionally, but can really afford not to panic at all. 7 minutes lead, and then a big gap back to 11 minutes to 3rd place, and then 12 minutes to 4th place. So a real battle is going to ensue for the final step on the podium, and things could close up, because it's certainly not all downhill just yet. There's a few little kickers before we drop finally down into the finish. So this deep into the race, 4 hours and 17 minutes. His legs are really going to start to hurt now.
Yeah, for sure. He's anything over 4 hours on a bike is hard, and when you've done 4 hours over this amount of height gain, you're certainly going to know about it for a few days afterwards as well.
We've seen many of the road riders now going to train at altitude. Are we seeing similar things in mountain biking as well?
Yeah.
Clearly the physiology is very similar, especially at this particular discipline, to riders of the road. And I know a lot of road riders in the latter stage of their career have migrated across over to this particular discipline. But will these riders, do altitude training camps to replicate these sorts of conditions?
Yeah, right now, you know, we were in not in marathon, but in cross-country mountain biking. We were in a period between the 2 sets of World Cups. And, you know, the riders like Nino Schurter, and they're all at altitude now, just getting ready. They'll dock out every now and again to do a race, just to keep the kind of race legs going. But you know, they're in wherever, Livigno in Italy or in Switzerland, kind of, yeah, the high places in Europe now. The weather's perfect for it, as we can see in the Dolomites as well. So they've all got their own preferred locations. The British right now are in Andorra. The next World Cup, cross-country World Cup's in Andorra, so they're kind of gone out 3 weeks early, staying in the ski area, so it's perfect. And it's all riding like this. I mean, why wouldn't you? Honestly, it's, you know, it's the best places in the world to ride bikes, and yeah, it doesn't make it a stressful job at all.
I think even when you compare, obviously a road rider through and through in the past, but I do like getting out when I can on a mountain bike, and there's just that additional sense of kind of freedom and an additional sense of kind of exploration as well that you get with mountain biking. It just takes you to those kind of the parts that you can't get on a road bike, but you still get that same kind of sense of freedom and the thrill of descending. It is just a wonderful sport, and I think you know, riders who've migrated across from road to mountain biking and vice versa. I think both sports can offer something to each other. But no, a sport I think that's back on the ascendancy again, mountain biking, but with some new disciplines as well, looking going into the Olympics as well.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, obviously nothing new in mountain biking in the Olympics going into Tokyo, but you know, certainly new disciplines are coming all the time. You know, we've got enduro, which is huge growth in enduro at the moment in the last sort of 5 years. You know, stage races, marathons. There's so many different facets to mountain bike sport, and all of them have got, you know, an elite level at the top, and then a mass participation further down, and that's where the cycle industry can maximise, you know, bike sales and bike technology and development. And I think that's where, you know, we've seen the development of bikes so much in the last 5 years. Like you said earlier, you know, suspension and gearing and brakes and dropper posts. It's all, you know, it's all because of yeah, the increased participation really and bike sales. It's
well, they're talking about the route marking. That was he had to know where he was going there because he's got nobody to guard him in front. And I thought he was going to go off to the right, but clearly there are some quite small, very subtle bits of signage. Yeah. And this is one of these single track sections that we were talking about before. There are sections of road, also sections of off-road, as it were. And then this will definitely be classified as single trail. 35.7% of the course is single trail, and a particularly fast section. So here's our leader, Giulio Bragnoli of Italy, looking set fair for victory today in the Heroes Südtirol Dolomites. It's a round of the UCI MTB Marathon Series. He's already had a win in the series this year and a podium place, and is looking very, very good with 6 kilometers to go now. Last year's winner, Hector Pérez-León of Colombia, is in second place, 7 minutes further down the road. And then the third place rider is at around 11 minutes. So a very, very strong display here by Bragnoli. And looking back to the highlights earlier in the show, Simon, he went away very early on one of the climbs, so clearly, you know, is without a shadow of a doubt the strongest, but obviously very, very full of confidence as well.
Yeah, for sure. You know, he went away with Paulison, as we saw early in the day, but then just ridden on his own ever since, and like you say, very, very confident to be able to do that. For Paez, he obviously had I don't know, it'd be interesting to find out the story afterwards, whether he had a problem at the start or just wasn't feeling so great to ride with the leaders, but he wasn't in that top 6 or 8 riders that we saw in the first 45 minutes of the race. But Paez has got an amazing track record of this event. I think he first won it in 2012, again in 13. You know, he's sort of 6 or 7 years into it now, and he'll know the course, you know, very, 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 very well. Knows his own ability very well as well, too. So obviously he's still chasing hard, but that gap, we haven't had an update on it recently, but I'm sure it's still significant.
Yeah, I think the last check, as we said, was 7 minutes and 11 seconds, 6 Ks to go. And just looking at the way that Bragnoli is riding at the moment, looks full of flight. And as you say, just the way he is on the bike, looks like he's putting a lot of power through. You know, certainly not capitulating at the moment. Actually looks to be getting stronger and stronger. Obviously buoyed by the gap he's got. And also, of course, wearing the Italian champions jersey on Italian soil. This is going to be a very, very big victory for him. But this is more of a fire road now, isn't it? Well, or the deforested area.
Exactly, yep.
So a slightly faster section. But what sort of training will these riders do? Will they ride these sorts of courses? Will they mix it with the road? Will they, I mean, what sort of training program will a rider of this quality kind of look to do in terms of mixing up his training? Will it be all off-road or a little bit of a mixture?
No, a mix, definitely a mix. I think, you know, they'll do training camps on the road and some training camps off-road, and a lot of it depends where they live. If they've got easy access to good areas like this where they can train off-road, then they'll maximise it. If they need to travel to somewhere to do it, they'll do it in shorter blocks of, you know, week 10-day camps, and then fill in from the home base on the road. But again, you know, it's almost road levels of endurance. They're racing, you know, very hard for 4 or 5 hours. So it's yeah, it's a lot of hours. It's a lot of kind of sustained climbing efforts. Yeah, a lot of power meter work.
This is, I mean, looking at the time, and still with about 5 kilometers to go, there's going to be at least another quarter of an hour of riding here, although a lot of it is downhill. So we're well into like 180, 190 kilometer kind of territory in terms of times on the road.
Yeah.
So as you say, riding on the road, is something that these riders will incorporate into their training. But as you said, it's just the pedaling dynamics in mountain biking is just so different on the road. And if you exclusively trained on climbs using the different gearing and the kind of different kinetics involved in racing, I mean, this is low velocity, high torque work on the climbs.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of difficult to explain that to the layman. But we alluded to it earlier on when we were looking at the women's race. But you're climbing at a high cadence at very low speeds, and there are different forces at play, and therefore your body needs to be trained in a different way, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And even if you ride your mountain bike on the road as training, that's just making an effort in that position is different to riding on a road bike. So, you know, it's something you see, again, regularly. Road tyres on a mountain bike, riding on the road, again, a lot of it depends where you live. But again, you still need this technical ability. You need to be able to nail descents. You need to be able to, you know, ride on all the different surfaces you're going to go and encounter, and you need to do that. You need to ride it. Certainly, you can't have many days without riding on it. No, that ability goes away quite quickly. So,
like you say, it's you know, the speeds that they're riding up on the climbs, and also the gradients, because most of the gradients, or many of the gradients that we've seen the riders going up today, would never be tackled on a road bike.
Absolutely.
And it's also, they're sat down putting the power through the bike in a way that you would never do on a road bike. It's only something you can do on a mountain bike. So you're kind of incorporating different muscles group recruiting. Now your arms a lot more as well. I remember the first mountain bike race I did, about 2 hours 15 in length. I felt completely destroyed. I'd never ridden something so hard in my life, but it wasn't just my legs, my entire body, my back. So a lot of these riders, I guess, will be using the gym, not to put in any bulk, but to do core work. So you need to be strong all the way through, don't you?
Yeah, a lot of core work, an awful lot of that, and they're all skinny guys. I mean, they're all light and yeah, you kind of, you know, in the 60 kilo kind of men, sort of 50 kilos women categories. You know, very small, very skinny, but they still need that upper body strength. This long, extended descending, standing on the pedals, you're taking all the shock through your arms, through your hands, through your wrists. And yeah, you do need an awful lot of core work. Oof.
I think that looked like the kilometre to go. So there was a little triangle that said 1 on it.
Okay.
I don't know if we have actually gone through 4 kilometres that quickly, but well, it is 1 kilometre to go.
Spotted, yeah. We're at the right sort of time, 4.5 hours.
We are indeed. So still very technical here. Needs to make sure he gets this right. But this is a wonderful day for this rider, Juri Ragnoli, riding to victory in the Heroes Südtirol Dolomites 2017. Juri Ragnoli of Italy has a healthy gap over the rider in second place. He's dropping down this very technical descent into the finish there. A bit of a sketchy moment on that little hairpin corner there. No margin for error at all.
That's a big drop down the left-hand side as well.
Yeah, it is a big drop, as I say. Went very close to the edge, but he's got this pretty much dialed. And
fair play to the cameraman. I know he's on an e-bike, but it's a big, heavy bike as well, so he's... if it is Paul Huber, he's doing a good job keeping up there.
Well, he's certainly delivering some fantastic pictures to us here. This is breathtaking stuff as he drops down to the finish line in the Selva Val Gardena. And there he is, only a couple of bike lengths adrift. And this is going to be a wonderful victory for Juri Ragnoli, 29 years of age now. This will be his second victory in the UCI Mountain Bike Marathon Series this year. Took a victory earlier in the year at the Tilliment Marathon Bike event, also in Italy, so clearly rides very, very well on home soil. A little kick up to the line now. He's certainly not giving up. Is he fighting all the way to the line despite the healthy advantage?
Yeah, yeah. No, he's ridden well. I think if you think he's ridden probably over a 4-hour time trial, effectively, in some of the hardest terrain that you could find in Europe. So he's measured his effort very well. He's looked after himself, looked after his bike. Well-deserved victory.
And here he is coming down into the line. The Italian tricolour upon his shoulders, denoting the fact that he is Italian champion, winning on Italian soil. A wonderful win here for Juri Ragnoli. So Ragnoli takes the flag and takes the win. Rolls across the line with a stick. Sadly, the flag has gone, but he's got a flag on his jersey, of course. Ragnoli takes the win for Italy in the Heroes Südtirol Dolomites race 2017, and doesn't he look delighted? 86 kilometres, 4,500 metres of vertical elevation. It's the first time he's won this race, and boy, is he delighted. Lifts his bike up, big, big win for this young man.
That's a moment to savour, isn't it?
That certainly is. It was a shame his flag came to grief, but it's lucky he's wearing the tricolour of Italian champion now. A fine win, and as you say, measured his effort perfectly today. A real show of strength, especially the way he distanced four-time winner Hector Payos-Leon, who's still out on the course, probably with a couple of kilometres to go. So real convincing victory there for the Italian rider, and that clearly means a lot to him. So that will buoy his confidence ahead of the next World Cup race, should he be doing that one, and of course the World Championship later in the year.
Yeah, World Championships next week, and I'm sure he'll be there, part of the Italian national team. And then again for the remaining rounds of the UCI Marathon Series.
It's a good victory for Ragnoli. He's actually ranked 265th in the world, so this will move him up the rankings of victory in this race.
Yeah, in the UCI ranking, which the marathon races don't score huge points, it doesn't really affect the cross-country ranking too much. He'll move up the UCI marathon overall standing right now with this win and his third place a few weeks ago as well. The best 6 rounds count for that. So he's got 2 good ones now, and I'm sure he'll be doing some more races between now and the end of the season to lift himself up that ranking.
A ride for the GS Scott Racing Team ASD.
For Italy, Yuri
And
Ragnoli.
here is an interview with the winner, Yuri Ragnoli. So what emotions are you feeling? Very emotional for me. I've been trying for years to win this, and today was perfect for me. I'm just so glad to win.
The last years, every time something happened, but today everything has went fine, and I'm so happy to have won here. Allora, I prossimi obiettivi?
Sì, adesso andiamo ai mondiali di Singen in Germania.
What's next for you?
Però andiamo super a far bene come nazionale. Poi la Dolomites Superbike, il campionato italiano per riconfermarsi.
There are many races in the future, but the championship in Germany, I hope to do well with my team, for Italy team. Grazie, Yuri. Congratulations.
Grazie a voi. Ciao.
So a delighted winner there, crossing the line again. I've no doubt he'll be happy to watch that in slow motion on numerous occasions. One of the biggest victories of his career. There he is, your winner, Yuri Ragnoli of Italy. So Yuri Ragnoli is the winner, and this is the second place rider out on the course. Hector Leonardo Payos-Leon of Colombia, the 4 times winner of this event. And he has, at the last time check, about 3 or 4 minutes on the third place rider, but at the moment it's 3 minutes and 41 seconds behind Ragnoli with a few kilometres to go. This is a pretty technical, sketchy section here, but that's a big time gap. 7 minutes is a big, big win for Ragnoli, and I wonder if Payos will be happy with this. I mean, a 4 times winner, very experienced, but that's a handsome margin of victory by the Italian.
It is huge. Yeah, I'm actually quite surprised it is that big over a rider like Payos-Leon. But he's obviously taking some great shape into next week's World Championships. I think the other race he mentioned was the one of the other rounds of the Marathon World Series in Italy, in Villabassa, in a few more weeks. It'll be another challenge for him. And the Italian National Championships, again, I think he'll be looking to defend that title.
He's certainly in good shape to do that.
I think it's all setting up to be a great championships next week in Germany. We've got these guys that are racing here, but there's so many people that have targeted that race in Singen. Totally different kind of course to this. We mentioned it earlier, but a lot more shorter, punchier climbs, forest trails, wider roads. It'll be a different style of racing, and there'll be more bunched racing than we've seen today. And certainly the gaps won't be anything like. There won't be a 7-minute winner next week.
Yeah, like I said, when you look back at, well, firstly the distance of this race, the time it's taken, you know, 86 kilometres. That's a lot of. I mean, 86 k's on the road is considerable over this sort of terrain, but 86 kilometres off-road, absolutely brutal. But as you say, really suiting the pure climbers And maybe the events that you've been talking about will suit more the all-rounders, the punchier riders as well. Bring a few more riders into the mix anyway.
It will, and some of the cross-country riders will do it as well, that are, you know, between World Cups. So, yeah, it's always an interesting event. We've had the likes of, you know, Jaroslav Kulharvi, the Olympic champion from London, that's won the Marathon World Championships. We've had people like Alban Lakata that's won this race. He won the World Championships actually on this course 2 years ago. He's not here. Sally Bigham, we've got Gunrita Dahl, Sabine Spitz, these riders that have, you know, kind of mixed between both disciplines, that'll be all fired up for World Championships and rainbow jerseys next week. Indeed, well, I'd look forward to that. But meanwhile, Hector Pérez-León is coming into the last few hundred metres of his ride today. The four-time champion of this event will have to settle for second place on this occasion. Still a very good ride, but perhaps he'll be surprised by the victory, by the margin of victory for Jure Ragnoli. I think the clock is going to tick just past 7 minutes by the time he crosses the line. But still a fine ride by the Colombian. He's put a lot of daylight in between him and the third place rider. And of course the third place still to be decided. Not too sure what's happening out on the road behind. But the last time we saw, there was a pretty fierce battle between third and fourth. Less than a minute separating the riders. But no doubt about second place today. It is going to go to Hector Pérez-León of Colombia, of the Polymedical ASD team. He takes the Colombian flag. Hopefully that will stay. It has. It stayed. That's a relief. Hector Pérez-León takes second place in the Heroes Südtirol Dolomites 2017. The gap just under 7 minutes, so still a fine ride. Very consistent ride by this rider. Good, and I think he was taking time out of the race winner there the last few kilometres. So again, I'm sure everyone's got a story to tell at the end of a race like this. I'd be fascinated to hear what happened to Hector in the first hour or so, because he certainly wasn't in contention, and we were looking at gaps there of 4 or 5 minutes down in the first hour, and his name wasn't there. So, you know, he has finished under 7 minutes down, but a lot of that was lost in the early part of the race. So whether he had mechanical trouble, whether he just wasn't feeling great, I'm sure we'll get to find out in the coming days. But yeah, a good race and a very worthy podium rider. Indeed, he certainly did take some time back. It was under 7 minutes. It was 7:11 the last time we checked. So on that final 7 or 8 kilometres, he did eat into the lead. Never really troubled Jure Ragnoli, of course. A very comfortable winning margin indeed by the Italian. But as we say, as the race is deconstructed and looked into, we'll no doubt find out the reasons, whether it was just bad legs or he had a mechanical. He did seem to be explaining something to one of his his team workers there. But we'll soon find out. But meanwhile, we wait for the final place on the podium as we see the replay of Pérez-León crossing the line. A little bit of a skid there just as he crosses the line. A little bit of flair riding for the crowd as he comes in, with the flag draped over his shoulders. But a great event in this marathon calendar. And as you said, it's been a spectacular day's racing. It has, and it's almost a tourist advert for the Dolomites and bike riding, isn't it? Definitely is. Definitely is. It's in the Alta Badia region, of course, on the Dolomites. So they speak the native language spoken in this area is actually Ladin. But we're going to have a couple of hopefully a couple of words here with Hector Pérez-León.
Sì, ciao a tutti. Prima che tutto ringrazio la mia squadra, Polimica
Thanks
e
to my
Fedele,
team
per il suo supporto.
for the support.
Oggi sapevo di non stare tanto
And
bene,
today felt okay.
purtroppo un periodo che non mi sento bene, e questa mattina non ero bene, ho vomitato, non so, è stato male la notte, ma dai, sono riuscito a tenere duro e all'inizio ho fatto troppa fatica, poi ho recuperato un po', poi ho sbagliato un po' strada, conoscevo il percorso ma ho pensato magari hanno cambiato un po', ma poi dai, sono riuscito a continuare.
Well, I didn't feel very well last time, so I was injured, and today I had a lot of difficulties starting getting the right rhythm. At the end, I also get the wrong road, and I have to know the road. I've won 4 times. I thought maybe they changed the parkour. At the end, I'm happy, and I thank all of my team. Thank you so much. Gracias, Hector.
Grazie a tutti. Ciao.
Well, there we go. So Hector Pérez-León took the wrong course, unfortunately. But no doubt about the winner Was it you, Ragnoli? But what a spectacular day's racing we have had. There's more racing coming up at Tour of Slovenia this afternoon at 1400 hours, stage 3, the Queen stage of the Tour of Slovenia, 167 kilometres. But from me, Matt Stevens, and from Simon Burney, here in the beautiful Alta Badia region of the Dolomites, it's goodbye and hopefully see you next year.